Good morning and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. It is Wednesday, April 29th. The month is almost over. We're about to start the month of May, the month that will decide a lot of things for us in terms of how our day to day activities will continue to unfold. If you've been with us before, welcome back. If this is your first time with us, my name is Paco, and we get together every morning at 10:30 Puerto Vallarta time to talk about things that matter to us, Puerto Vallarta residents, news from nearby, news from afar, things that are going on, and most importantly, things to keep us inspired. And speaking of keeping us inspired, I have all kinds of really wonderful tips for you today. Today is a great day for music karma because I'm going to share some events that happened today that are just great excuses to go back and explore music of specific composers or specific performers or arrangers. We're going to be talking about musical arrangers today. And I'll start by giving you a quick question. Name an American pop song. Well, it's not a pop song. Name a famous American song that has to do with socks. And if you cannot guess what it is, we will figure that out at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the broadcast. And I'll give you another hint. This particular song has to do with "Sock It to Me," "Sock It to Me," "Sock It to Me." So today we celebrate the launching of this amazing song. If you haven't figured out what it is, I can keep whacking my face with my sock all you want. But let's get into some good mornings. Before we do that, if you're new to these broadcasts, please write the word new next to your comment so that we can give you a proper welcome. And of course, if you're not watching live, if you're catching the stream later on in the day, you are also welcome, and your comments are very, very valuable as well. Feel free to leave your comments. I will continue to scan each broadcast for comments from everyone. If you're not watching this live, leave your comments and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, it's very nice to see some of the usual faces we see here: Sue, Mihal, Sean, Kathleen, Jamie, Rita. Great suggestions yesterday. Thank you very much. I will be mentioning those later on today. Darlene, good morning from BC. Um, Cloudy San Francisco, and March, it's great to see you. Christy, March, it's great to see you all as always. So let's get started with a few headlines while we get comfortable. I hope you'll have your coffee ready to go. And let's jump over to headlines because we're going to have some interesting things going on today. At the top of the list, of course, the fact that the very first um, lab to detect COVID 19 outside of the metropolitan area in Guadalajara has been set up here in Puerto Vallarta. It is located at the campus of the Guadalajara University here in town in Iztapa. And it's the very first one outside of Guadalajara because Puerto Vallarta has the largest number of cases outside of the metropolitan area of Guadalajara. This new lab expects to make an average of about 30 daily tests for coronavirus, and the tests are back, the results are back within 2 to 3 days. That's what the article says. Important, this is not the kind of thing in which you can just jump over there, hop on a bus, hop on an Uber, and say, please test me. It is very important that you call ahead and use this number here where you get a pre-screening code. And once you have that code, this is when you are able to go and get your test. So that's the first news that I want to share with you. Another news item that caught my attention: a new trend. Doctors are starting to strip down and pose naked as a protest to the lack of equipment. No, it's not eye candy if you're thinking it's going to be eye candy, but more importantly, doctors around the world are getting into this habit of expressing themselves to show how vulnerable they feel without the proper equipment. And this is happening in Germany. There's another group that is doing it in France. So, too sad that doctors have to rely to this kind of political statement to emphasize the way they are having to operate. It continues to be super important to support our medical staff, from janitors and cleaners to doctors to nurses, everybody that is involved in keeping us healthy and safe. Now, imagine for a second some of the headlines that we've been seeing about COVID-19 going away with heat and humidity. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if this was true? I mean, just imagine the kick ass season that Puerto Vallarta would have if all of a sudden it became true that heat and humidity has a major impact on the lifespan of the virus. I mean, we would just have so many visitors this summer. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We know this from an article from Vox called Why Summer Likely Won't Save Us from the Coronavirus. The article goes on to say that yes, heat and humidity have some effect on the way a virus propagates and so forth and so on, but this is not something that happens with enough intensity to really make the virus go away. So this is an important, interesting read for you from Vox. Another interesting read I found comes from Wired. Wired published this article called Five Big Mistakes We Can Make Fighting the COVID-19 Pandemic. This article is interesting, and the video is interesting from 2 points of view. First of all, because it talks about what entire countries can and should be doing. And that's the troublesome part of the article, because we're likely to think, well, this is what countries should be doing. Why isn't Mexico doing this? Why isn't Canada or the United States? Excuse me. Or wherever you are. But it also talks about the personal things we can and should be doing. Yesterday, we touched base on how eager we were going to be about just running out the door whenever the quarantine guidelines are lifted. It's clear that most of us are not going to just run everywhere. So this is something else that we can learn about in this particular article. And then we have, oh, this is very funny, because El Heraldo de Mexico tells us about a new reaction that Facebook is going to release. You know how on Facebook you can react to certain things by saying you like it, you dislike it, so forth and so on. The article tells us the article asks how to activate the new reaction from Facebook. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's newsworthy, I suppose, to know that now instead of just loving something, you can also say that you care on Facebook. But the way the article is written is such that it tells us at the top, we solve the mystery, it says here, we solve the mystery on how to activate this new reaction. And so you're figured, oh, wow, I'm going to read this because it's really important. It's really interesting. So you read the whole fracking thing, and at the bottom, the article tells you, what do I have to do? Well, all you have to do is wait for it to become available in your area. So seriously? Clickbaiting. And I love it because sometimes we don't want to be clickbaited, but from a journalistic point of view, you got to appreciate a good effort from a newspaper to try to get you to read something, which leads me to another article I read yesterday that was of a similar fashion, because what this article suggested was that COVID-19 could be spread through gases that come out of your body. And needless to say, I was curious about it. So I went and read the whole freaking thing. And then towards the end of the article says, well, it's not conclusive. But I mean, talk about, if this was true, this would be like the ultimate silent but deadly. And thank God that is not the case. Anyhow, moving on to other headlines, we have this one about gay pride. Now, this may not be of interest to everybody. It's interesting to me because I'm gay, but it should also be interesting to all of us because Um, it happens. It happens around the world, gay pride. And this is an interesting commentary on what pride will mean this year around the world, how pride organizations are hoping to be able to celebrate without creating a situation in which people would be likely to contract the virus, so forth and so on. Um, so if you've been curious about what's happening with pride, in Puerto Vallarta, elsewhere around the world, this is an article that may be interesting to you. I also found out that Google Meet, which is another competitor for Zoom, is now going to start making their multi-person meeting facility functionality free for everyone. Of course, 1 month ago, 2 months ago, only a few people knew about Zoom. Then all of a sudden, everybody's Zooming. We've talked about the new Zoom like features that Facebook is deploying in the near future. And of course, uh, Google has been offering this functionality, but not for free. They've been offering it only to certain types of accounts. But this is about to change. Google obviously does not want to be left out of the game. So starting in May, you're going to be able to also use Google to be able to have multiple collaborators or multiple friends in the same video conference, and this will be another way to connect with friends. We will be comparing these as we move forward to see what works for us and what doesn't work for us moving forward. Then yesterday, I received a wonderful note from Rita Myers. Hello, Rita. Rita is usually with us here in the morning, and I very much appreciate this. It turns out that Rita is interested in opera as much as I am. She and her wife are from Philadelphia, and she tells me that the opera company over there is quite immersed in doing good productions. And I looked at the schedule of what they're going to be streaming during the month of May, and I was quite excited to learn that they are going to be streaming several operas. It's going to be a total of one, two, three, and four, and five. But of all five operas, only one is an old opera, The Barber of Seville. Everything else that is going to be done in this schedule from the opera in Philadelphia is operas that were composed less than 10 years ago. It's all contemporary works. So it'll be very interesting to see how some of these composers are using the opera format as a way to share some of their work. And I am very much looking forward to exploring this programming. Thank you very much, Rita, for sharing this information with us. Um, Gina Presley tells us, "Suck it to me, baby." 1967, exactly. We're going to talk about that in a second. Jamie likes the fact that we have testing becoming available here. Of course, it is important. More good mornings. Is the testing for anyone who wants to get tested, or does one need to be showing symptoms? One needs to be showing symptoms, and one needs to be pre-screened for this particular program. This is the program that the Jalisco government has put aside. But your question is a very valid one. What does one do if one wants to be tested just for the sake of being tested? It's a great question. I'm going to take it to heart, and I'm going to do some research about this. I'm going to check in with Pam Thompson because she might have an answer. It is an important question because we know already that there are some people that catch coronavirus and they remain asymptomatic. You know, if we're not showing symptoms, it would still be good to know if we have it or if we had it and we didn't even notice it. You're reacting to the gases thing. We don't need to go there. I also want to show you this I can relate to because this is what happens when you're working from home. Check out Will Reeve. Will Reeve is a commentator for Good Morning America. He's also the son of the late actor Christopher Reeve. Well, in a recent segment in the show, he was caught reporting with his pants off, and he didn't expect that the angle of the camera would be so long that his underwear would show. He shortly thereafter reacted and he said, trying to be efficient, I got ready for a post. Good Morning America workout, a little too soon this morning. So I thought that was funny. A few days ago, Pam Thompson asked me to stand up and show what I was wearing. And I can tell you, I'm wearing my pajamas. And, it's comfortable. What can I say? Working from home has its advantages. And now I want to talk to you about these great musical excuses to get busy today because they are really wonderful. Why? Because today we celebrate the birthday of the wonderful Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington was born today in 1899. He was a composer, a pianist, a leader of a jazz orchestra from 1923 to 1974. And of course, talking about Ellington makes us think about what made Ellington so wonderful. And Ellington was wonderful because he was a talented musician, he was a charismatic man, he was a great band leader, and he was also a good arranger. And what makes a good arranger? Well, it's something similar to what happens to a chef. How do you create wonderful dishes with whatever ingredients you have at hand? A good arranger knows how each instrument works. It knows how the musical instrument ranges complement each other and knows how to put them together. So, oh my God, such a big topic. And you can slap me if this is boring to you. Just type the word slap and I'll stop talking about arrangers. But arrangers are so important. Now, Ellington, everybody thinks that Ellington was the big band arranger. But in reality, Ellington also teamed up with a lot of musicians who worked in his band who were equally good at arranging. One of those cases is Billy Strayhorn, who was his sideman for many, many years. And Billy Strayhorn was, in fact, the one who was responsible for doing most of the arrangements that Duke Ellington used to play. Now, there are great documentaries about Billy Strayhorn out there that are worth pursuing. Billy Strayhorn was this very quiet man. He was black. He was gay in a time in which, you just couldn't be black and gay and talented in America. But knowing about the codependent relationship, non sexual, but the codependent creative relationship between Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, it's a fascinating topic. If you ever want to go there, just let me know. I would love to share some of this information with you. But going back to our things to celebrate today, if you don't know this man, you've probably heard him. He was born in 1930. His name is Claus Ogerman, and he's a German arranger, conductor, and composer. Again, the arranger is one of those people involved in the production of music that seldom is acknowledged as much as they should. Claus Ogerman did amazing albums with Antonio Carlos Jobim when Bossa Nova came to the United States. He did amazing albums with Frank Sinatra, and he did amazing albums with Diana Krall, this soothing, soulful jazz piano player who also sings that we know and love. And what an arranger like Ogerman brings to these recordings is a certain type of sound. For example, Ogerman uses these very lush, thick jazz harmonies, and he puts them to use through a very big string orchestra, and he uses horns beautifully. And I know some of this, it sounds a little bit abstract, but it is really fascinating to see how you start listening to certain albums and you start recognizing the way they sound, and you start identifying how they're related to one another. So I'm going to leave you links to 3 albums. One is going to be a Antonio Carlos Jobim album, one is going to be a Frank Sinatra album, and one is going to be a Diana Krall album. If you have nothing to do this afternoon, just check them out and listen to them and see if the sound tells you anything or speaks to you in one way or another. I also want to tell you, of course, and I gave you a hint earlier, today was the day in which Aretha Franklin released the 1967 single called Respect. Now, this is a great song. We know it, we love it. But it's interesting to say that this song had been actually written and recorded by Otis Redding 2 years prior. And it was done so from a man point of view. His point of view was a plea from a desperate man who will give his woman anything she wants, whereas Aretha turns this into a declaration from a strong, confident woman who knows that she has everything her man wants. It was Aretha's production who added that RESPCT business in the chorus. It was Aretha's version that added the background singers doing Sock It To Me, Sock It To Me. And who was responsible for this? Well, it was the arranger. And who was the arranger of this music? Who was the arranger of Respect? Well, none other than R.F. Martin. And R.F. Martin went on to become an amazing record producer. He worked for Arista Records for many, many years. R.F. Martin was behind people from Mariah Carey to Barry Manilow to Chaka Khan. And it sounds like I'm dropping names, but again, when you happen to be fascinated by these things, and I am, for better or for worse, it's really amazing to see how all these people are interconnected. It's also amazing to see that none of you has written the word slap. So you are happy enjoying this conversation, which is great. And I have another awesome musical anniversary to share with you that happened today. And this has to do with this amazing American tribal love rock musical, which opened in 1968 today at the Biltmore Theater in New York City, and it stayed on for a total of 1,750 performances. Now, why was Hair so amazing? Well, just think about this. When Hair came out, the other musicals that were on different theater marquees at the same time were Hello Dolly, Man of La Mancha, Funny Girl, and Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, these are very conventional musicals. In fact, Fiddler on the Roof has this song called Tradition. So tradition is this thing that we associate with Broadway, and all of a sudden we have this hippie musical that has to do with drugs and sex and medication for tripping and long hair, and it even has a nudity in it. So I can only imagine that Broadway showgoers must have been completely shocked in a similar way to how we reacted to Rent when Rent first came out. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw Rent or if you've ever watched any of the video captures of the show. There's a couple of versions of Rent that were filmed live that are truly spectacular. And what a different show that was from everything else that had come to Broadway. So today is the day in which celebrate the very first performance of Hair, and I am going to make a confession. I've never seen it. I've never seen Hair. So today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch Hair, and I'm going to see what it tells me. And maybe I'll tell you about it tomorrow, maybe not. It depends on whether you ask me about it or not, but I'm always happy to share these things. Let's see what else you have to say about this. Na, 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 na. Thank you, Barbara, for the comments. Thank you, Fred. It's always great to come up with things. Thank you for the album links. Oh, great. You love this stuff. Diana Krall. Yes, we love Diana Krall. She's an amazing singer. You know, she's married to Elvis Costello, who does completely different types of music. They must have great conversation during dinner time. Fred guessed that we were talking about Respect, of course. Rest in peace, Aretha. Absolutely. Last year, or maybe it was the year before, I don't remember, we did an amazing music appreciation lecture about Aretha Franklin. And maybe this is something that we can recreate on live stream. Maybe we can do some of these things in these venues. One of the big challenges, and we've talked about this in the past, is that whenever I've done music appreciation things, it's easy to do it in a venue where the copyright police is not coming after you, like YouTube or Facebook. In YouTube or Facebook, the moment you play a musical selection that doesn't belong to you, they will immediately flag you. But I think I may have something of a solution to come up with ways in which I can share more music knowledge with you if this is information that you want to know more about. Suzanne says that she loves this stuff. I love you too, Suzanne. Suzanne is one of those folks that has accompanied me in my lectures a number of times, and we've gone to concerts together, so it's really great to hear from you. Um, what else do I have? Oh, I have one more. Something else that I'm going to be chasing today is this movie that I'm very curious about, and I don't know if you have seen previews for it. This is a movie called The Assistant, and it stars Julia Garner. And this is a fictional movie, but it's largely inspired by the Harvey Weinstein harassment case that has been in the headlines for a while. This movie is available only through streaming right now. I think it's available through iTunes, through Apple, and it's also available through, let me see, it's also available through, oh, it's available through iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, YouTube, and Google Play. We're going to see where we can find it. It's interesting. It's interesting to see. I was also reading peripherally that this year the Academy Award has decided that they're going to allow nominees to be movies that have only been streamed. In the past, of course, your movie had to be released in movie theaters. This, of course, is not presently possible because of the quarantine that we're all going through, but it'll be an interesting year. In years past, I always make it a point to try to find the nominated films and watch them before the show because it's nice to know what people are talking about. So I'm going to be trying to watch this movie this afternoon. Being mindful of the fact that, as I mentioned yesterday, I am in the middle of an intensive live streaming seminar that is going to go on today, tomorrow, and the day after. Today, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure that I had enough headlines and enough content for you, as every day. And then, of course, I've been watching these very empowering and inspiring sessions all morning long, and I will continue to do that through the day and tomorrow and the day after, so that we can continue to create great experiences in this particular space. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, if there's specific topics that are important to you, please let me know in your comments. I always read them and I always try to get back to you as soon as possible. And as always, I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, and I look forward to having a great day of knowledge and learning today. As soon as I have the comments ready for you and all the show notes with all these links, I invite you to come back and visit this video. I invite you to share it with your friends so that more and more people have interesting things to talk about. And as always, I thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have an excellent day.